About a month and a half ago, a moment I've been anticipating for a while finally happened.
Yo, I'm coming back for you.
My beloved first car decided to die on the highway in the middle of the night. At first I thought it was a battery issue, below freezing temps, running the heater, inverter, but after diving way too deep into diagnostics on the side of a busy highway, fueled by the delusions that I was just around the corner of getting this thing to drive away, and fear of a giant towing bill,
I think this is our go, because I heard it sputter once.
I realized that the Tucson would not, in fact, be driving away under its own power. I went through literally every system I was familiar with: battery, spark, fuel, air, but of course the culprit was the one thing I'd neglected in my maintenance that I didn't even know to look out for.
Well, she's getting towed, the engine is probably done. Timing belt, big time snapped on me. So it's very possible this engine is done entirely.
The plan for the Tucson was always to keep the stock drivetrain for as long as possible and then swap something else in. But this moment was about the worst possible time for that to happen.
Engine swap time, I guess. I don't really have the money for that, but I'm gonna figure it out. Fun stuff.
I felt a little defeated in this moment. It was my first major mistake in fully maintaining my own car. Usually when something needs serviced, you can tell, and worst case, if something breaks, you can just replace it. But for this particular part, a timing belt on an interference engine, there's basically no warning signs, and if it breaks, your engine is just done. But in situations like this, it's important to remember that you don't know what you don't know until you learn it one way or another. Now, although it sucks that this situation was completely preventable if I had known to replace my timing belt every 60,000 miles or so, it's still a good learning experience. My best understanding is that when the head comes up in the combustion chamber, the valve moves out of the way, and if the timing gets screwed up, they will collide, basically requiring a full engine rebuild. So unless I lucked out incredibly with the positions when my timing belt snapped, my engine is likely done. But regardless, I'm gonna tear into the thing, see what I can learn from this situation before moving on and deciding what I'm gonna do next. My brother came over with his endoscope so we could look down the spark plug holes. First cylinder didn't look so great. It's hard to tell how much is grime and how much is actual surface damage, but the other 3 cylinders looked pretty good. My next path was trying to look through the exhaust manifold. I was actually hoping to see some obvious proof that the thing was dead, just so I could get it over with and move forward. But I felt a responsibility that if I killed this engine due to not knowing how something worked, I should do as much as I can to learn about it.
So I have no idea what I'm actually looking for. I don't know if those are the valves.
I believe we're looking at the push rods that lift the exhaust valves. I don't know if those would be bent in a timing mishap, but they clearly weren't bent here, so still no kill confirmation. While I thought about my options for moving forward, I decided to start cleaning out the car. Unless I lucked out on the 1 in 1,000 chance that nothing broke when my timing belt snapped, this car likely won't be driving until the spring. Now, the sensible thing to do here obviously would be to just send the car to the scrapyard. It's probably worth $200 at this point, and it's just a crappy 2007 Hyundai. I struggle to understand my own reasoning for not wanting to get rid of this car. I think it's a mix of sentimental value, enjoying doing the work on it myself, and maybe a personal statement against the disposability of things. If you're doing all the labor yourself, you can really keep a car on the road for as long as you want until it rusts away, especially if it's a relatively simple older car with not a lot of electronics. I screwed up here not knowing to do the preventative maintenance of changing the timing belt ahead of time, but I know now, and I could grab this exact same engine from a scrapyard for about $800. Right now, $800 is the average monthly payment for a new car in the US. So why not keep this thing going? I like my crappy analog dashboard. I don't need no Apple CarPlay. The most sensible option to keep this car on the road would be to just put in a new engine, but although I like the idea of the Tucson being my forever car, I don't think the 4-cylinder Hyundai engine is my forever drivetrain. So the next option would be engine swap, put in a more reliable, more powerful engine, although I'm not going to do that either. My plan for this car has always been to turn it into a little mini pickup truck. Cut the back off, turn it into a little 2-door. The problem is that part is structurally important. It's a unibody car, not body on frame. So my plan is not just an engine swap, but a full chassis swap, taking the shell of the Tucson cab and setting that on top of a body on frame truck. This kind of process is actually fairly common in classic trucks, taking an old cab off and putting it on a more modern chassis. It's by far not the easiest or simplest option, but it's been done, and I'm gonna make an attempt. Now, this will be a slow process. I'm confident I can make this idea happen, but I'm under no delusion that it'll be easy. It's getting cold out here in the Midwest, and I'm working on a shared concrete pad behind my duplex. Not the most ideal working conditions, but it could be worse, and if not now, then when. It would have been nice if I could have kept the engine running for another year, to wait for a time where I'm a bit more financially stable. I'm siphoning gas out of the Tucson here. That's how broke I am after buying the new donor vehicle. I bought a truck for the eventual chassis swap, which I'm gonna have to drive through the winter. The frame and engine are decent, but it was in a rollover and then sat for 3 years with windows busted out, so it's pretty rough. Gonna be a cold winter. Now, depending on the kind of person you are, you might be looking at me like I'm crazy at this point. Committing to a intense cab swap project when I don't even have enough money for gas, driving the parts car through the winter, all just to save a trashed 2007 Hyundai. But I truly love this stuff. At the end of the day, it's not about having the nicest things, saving the most money. For me, it's about feeling capable, trying things, learning new skills. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. Before I pull the engine out of the Tucson, I want to complete the timing belt job that would have saved it. It's almost certainly dead at this point, so there's nothing I can really screw up. It's a low pressure way to learn how to do this job that I should have done in the first place. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, this process did suck. It was very cold outside, and I knew that at the end of this, the thing probably wouldn't even work, and the timing belt requires disassembling every other belt and engine mounts to get to it. Just ignore the fact that there's snow all over that gear. Timing is something that I kinda always thought I would not be able to do. Lining up all the teeth perfectly, otherwise your engine blows up, is kinda scary. Alright, research time. This needs to go around that, which means I do have to get this bolt out so I can wrap it around. By the time it was dark outside, I had my new timing belt in place. It was a pain, but it actually wasn't as scary as I thought it would be, and that's one new part I've learned to replace now, although it was slightly too late on this engine. The next morning, I reattached everything I'd taken off to get at the timing belt. I guess there was still a part of me that hoped I lucked out on positioning and this would run fine after everything. But I knew realistically that this was probably the last maintenance I'd ever do on this engine. I don't exactly know how to feel in this moment. On one hand, I've been planning for this drivetrain to die for a few years. Honestly thought the transmission would go first, but I'm excited to pull all this out and start chopping things up in preparation for the cab transplant. But on the other hand, all of the money that I'd saved for that eventuality, I've burned through in the past year pursuing YouTube full-time. In some ways, this was the worst possible time for this to happen, and in some ways, it's the best. This happened right at the end of October, which was the biggest month of output I've had on this channel ever. So maybe it's the perfect wake-up call to keep putting my all into this and do my best to actually turn this into a sustainable job. Getting the car ready to attempt to start, I noticed this tire was extremely flat. I tried to run my little plastic air compressor to get it topped off, but it just was not working. Percussive maintenance got it going for a second. Air compressor gave up right after my car gave up. It's fitting, I guess. Unfortunately, I don't have $10 to buy another cheapo air compressor, but I do have $1.75 to run the gas station one. I've got a lot of work ahead of me, more so a lot of purchases, but I'm having a blast working on all this. There's a lot I can get done without spending much money, so I'm just gonna do my best to keep focusing on the things that I can do right now. At the same time, though, it is hard to keep the balance between fun and stress when things are so uncertain.
So this is, in theory, kind of a big moment. This could be the last time the Tucson moves under its own power, at least on that engine. I give it a 95% chance that it just doesn't work at all, 5% chance that maybe it runs on 2 cylinders for 30 seconds, and about a 0.1% chance that it actually works fine. I feel like I'm missing something. It's probably just gonna blow up anyway, so. It's time to find out. Will it start? That is the question. Oh. Moment of truth. Wait, that actually sounds kind of good. Oh, never mind. Yep. That's the sound of a dead engine there. Did you hear that from there? It's clunking, and pretty sure that's the sound of valves being bent out of shape. I'm gonna do it again. I don't think it'll be driving back there on its own. Yeah, that sounds crazy. Well, I can't say that's not what I expected. But, you know.
Shot look good.
Yeah?
Yeah, really good.
Did you hear like the backfire or whatever? Crazy. All right, so now I guess it's time to push it up the yard with the 4Runner.
If I were a reasonable man, this would be the end of my first car. But I'm not, and it isn't. For the moment, my daily driver will be the $500 chassis donor rolled over 4Runner. Cracked windshield, no seat belts, no sunroof, smashed out rear window, broken power steering, biohazard interior. Believe it or not, it is actually worse than the Tucson. But eventually, if all goes to plan, they'll become one car with my favorite parts of both. The reliability, power, and structure of the 4Runner, and the roomier, less destroyed cab of my Tucson. But for the winter, I just have two majorly screwed up vehicles. I am incredibly excited for the future of this project, but I'm not excited for the position I've put myself in for the next few months. But you know, You make your bed, you gotta lie in it. I could have taken out a loan and bought a car that actually works properly, but would I have as much fun doing it that way? No. Sometimes as a maker, the reality is, when you tinker with things that are crucial to your life, you might put yourself in some situations. You spend everything you got on a camera and gotta eat beans and rice for a while. You buy a fixer-upper house that sucks to live in for a season. That's life sometimes, living on your own terms. At the end of the day, I'm grateful that I have a car at all right now. I'm grateful to be working in my backyard instead of on the street, even if it's still outside. And I'm grateful that where I live in the world, driving these rust buckets is even legal. So, even though my car is dead for the moment, I'm excited for what's to come. Thank you for your time, and happy holidays.